Hey, everybody. How is it going? Ryan should be here in just a minute. I think the interview link was having some issues for him. But hey, happy Friday. Happy Friday. We are going to be doing a little bit of a lightning round today because there's some news. There's always kinds of news. And we just thought we'd run that down. So jump in the chat, say hi. I'm going to give Ryan a minute or two to get in. I think there's maybe some issues with the link that I gave him. We'll see what happens. Anyway, how are y'all doing? Team Replay live. There he is. The man of the hour. There he is.
Hello.
Dude, I love the denim jacket.
Hey, I can't hear you yet for some reason.
You can't hear me.
Oh, wait a second. I can hear you just fine now. Hooray.
It's the magic of technology.
Exactly.
I like your jacket, dude. Looks good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm doing that thing in California where we have 100-degree weather, get our homes down to about 65 degrees, and then wear jackets on the inside.
Yes.
So yeah, it's the most Californian thing that I feel like you can do.
It really is. Yeah, it totally is. But you know what? People need to understand that, especially in the area that you live in, I'll be moving to soon. It easily during this time of year gets between 100 and 112 sometimes. So we have to keep the house super duper cool, or else it's just ungodly unbearable.
Yes, it's like Phoenix in California. I mean, it's really really hot. And Jeff, I went back to my original setup. I'm hoping that my audio and my video are coming over okay.
Yeah.
But I went back to my original setup back when we first started this, however many years ago it was.
Yes. I don't even remember. Somebody asked me the other day. I'm like, has it been 2 or 3? I don't know. 2 or 3 years? 3 years? I don't know.
I will say a mutual friend of ours who is also a futurist reached out to me today because Jeff has been featured in our company's main employee page. And it's because Jeff has a really cool home setup, as we can all see. But what's really funny about it is that in there they talk about how Jeff is a very big Star Wars fan, and one of the things that's I love how it's described as fighting words. Jeff is described as possibly Cisco's biggest Star Wars fan. I don't know if there's some type of cage match.
I did not say that, by the way. They chose those words. I just want to put it out there. I did not draw that line in the sand. If that wasn't
me. Well, I will say it's really great. It's a great article. It's a great article about Jeff, and my response about it potentially being fighting words is I think that Jeff has the ownership of the biggest Star Wars fan in Cisco, and it's because I don't know anybody else that has Galactic Basic tattooed across his knuckles. And also, and this is a tattoo, this is one that I saw you get, which is you have a compass on one side, but you have a unique art piece on the other. And that is a hyper specific reference to like not a mainstream Star Wars thing. You know what I mean? Like that's EPS conduits in Star Trek language. You know what I mean? Like that is something that's super specific. Yep. So yeah,
it's kind of cool, dude. It's pretty cool to be featured that way. I sincerely appreciate the team that approached me with it and built out this really rad infographic that let me do all kinds of videos and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Right on. Good deal. Yeah. Well, congratulations. It was a really cool story. Also, you have a cool setup. Whatever your setup's going to be at home, I mean, I can't wait to see what it's going to be.
I am excited. I have all kinds of ideas, but the main one I've been wanting to do for a long time is to have enough space in a room where I can have this desk that I'm working on right now kind of be in a corner and where I can work, and then have a separate kind of like rectangular table set up with a backdrop of a bunch of this stuff that can be my actual like video recording area, so that I can stand up and like look at the camera and talk to the camera and still have access to everything that I need here, but be stood up with an actual backdrop dedicated to just recording video. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens.
That's really nice.
We'll see what happens. I don't have
deal.
that much space in my I mean, my new office is a standard 10 by 10 room, I think, so it's not like it is bigger than this clearly, but not that much bigger. So we'll see.
Well, I'll tell you, as someone who has divided a very small room, there's always a lot of possibilities.
Sure.
I have my desk on one side, and then this is like my regular office over here, although there's a big hole behind this wall, which is why this painting exists, because I'm going through a remodel. But then on the other side of this is a whole like setup. Like my couch is literally on the other side of my desk. And so I can, when I end my day, I can, this is the office side of my space to kind of respect my spaces. This is the office side of my space, and that's like the fun side of my space.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
That's
that's awesome, man.
Very cool.
Good deal.
So we're going to make it a quick one today. We're going to kind of do a lightning round because we both
I know there's a lot of news.
There is a lot of news, and we're going to keep this one a brief one today. We're not going to do the full hour like we tend to do. So we're going to do kind of lightning round. One of the first things I wanted to bring up is, and I thought this one was interesting. First off, there was a lot of like scuttle all over the interwebs that Disney has canceled The Acolyte. The show is done. The director's been fired and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah. Like none of that happened. But I will say, is it Lindsay Headland or Lisa Headland? I forget how to pronounce her name. She did get quoted as something kind of controversial. I mean, there's a couple of things she said recently. One thing about George Lucas we can get back to another time, but I really like, from a story perspective, this quote that she said, and I kind of paraphrase, which is, the Acolyte showrunner says the show, quote, won't be kind to the Jedi. And I haven't read the whole article yet, but I wanted to get your take on what do you think that could mean?
So I know I think that I'm a big history buff, and I always like seeing the interpretation of, wars and stories are often told by the tale of the victor. And so like anything, you could go back into Alexander the Great, or you could go to like Vietnam or like the Gulf War in the 90s, and the interpretation of that is like wildly different from group to group. And I think that because the Acolyte takes the position of the narrator, like not the narrator, but the protagonist is the bad guy. Yeah, the Jedi aren't going to come out well in a story that's like that, because the Jedi are going to seem exclusionary, dogmatic, and superior. And the bad guy in this case is and it's like the bad guy is going to seem vulnerable, ambitious, and righteous. You know what I mean? What you just have to. So I mean, I think that the Jedi are definitely going to be put into the role of the like the Spanish Inquisition. You know what I mean? I could see the Jedi being put in that type of role. I think that you could really explore that pretty well. I think that you just have to keep in mind that all stories typically have a gray area between good and evil, and then also that these are the bad guys. So you have to remember that if you ever catch yourself rooting for them, you're rooting for the bad guys. It's the same thing that happens with the Clone Wars. It's like, you got to remember that's how the Empire's formed.
Yes.
So, like there is, I always thought that a thing that was missing is the remnants of the independent systems that were inside of the Clone Wars should have become the phoenix that makes the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
That there was something to that, so that way you really did feel the rug pull out from under you, like, oh no, oh wait, these are the good guys. So yeah, I think that it's just going to be like the narrative storytelling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
There's a couple things I'm thinking about. The one, it's obviously I shouldn't say obviously, it is a clear way to me that they are going to show what becomes a slow decline towards the Empire. That's what you just said as well. Different words, but saying the same thing. And when I say that, when she says that the Jedi, this won't be kind to the Jedi, I think what it's going to start to really show is how do I word it? It's not the darker side, but the struggles that Jedi or real beings have with following Jedi dogma. Throughout most of the High Republic, while there is the dogma, so much more of the time is spent focused on but how an individual Jedi can learn something. But we've even seen in I'm trying to think which books I just finished reading. This one, Path of Vengeance, that I just finished reading the other day. It's the latest middle grade book in High Republic Phase 2. There is a character in it, Maddie, Mathia. She's a Jedi Padawan, and she talks about how she mentioned several times how the council teaches don't form attachments. You're not really supposed to fall in love. These other sorts of things. But she still kind of talks about, and what she talks about with other Jedi Knights and Masters, how those Knights and Masters even admit that they struggle. They have their own worries and fears, and they're not sure what to do. And it's like, oh, good. This Padawan really gets to see that they're not alone in the struggle of like having like I'm self-conscious or I'm this or that. And I think what we're going to see more of is, and I'm excited about this, is we're going to see more of. Rather than this, where they focus on these Jedi and these interpersonal relationships where Jedi and Padawans realize, oh, I actually am self-conscious. It's okay. I'm not sure how to do this. My master's not sure either. How do we work this out? And almost a focus on like, stop talking about that. From the council and from masters, no, you don't form attachments. If you don't know how to do that, you're bad. Whereas this is much more accepting of it. I think what we're going to see is more of those interpersonal things that the Jedi say that they believe in become more like almost over-rotated and focused on the dogma, which is don't do this or else you're bad. And become like start to become much more binary rather than it's a spectrum and you have to figure out how to work on that spectrum. What is the spirit of the thing? The example is always Jedi don't form attachments. That's crap. It's absolute crap. And it's talked about in every novel, and you see it, whether they explicitly state this, every being forms attachments with other beings. Most beings are not selfish. They're both selfless and selfish, and it requires when you work with another being and have a relationship, of course you're going to form attachment. The key is that in that attachment, you don't allow yourself to be all consumed when the attachment gets severed because of death, a break in the friendship, something else happens, so that it leads you to make poor decisions afterwards. And that's what always gets missed when Anakin and others fall, is they have the attachment, but they can't let go afterwards, or they can't realize things happen. I don't have to live my entire life based off the fact that this attachment doesn't exist anymore for whatever the reason happens to be. And I think this opportunity in Acolyte is going to give us a chance to see that in a real life. Like, see Jedi Masters or others be like, no, how dare you do this? You're not allowed to do that, Padawan. I don't know if it'll play out exactly that way, but I'm hoping that we see things like that in the show to really get a sense of like, oh, okay, this is really the slow burn towards this, because they're no longer as freewheeling and accepting of different points of view. They're becoming more over-centralized on the dogma as opposed to the spirit of what that's supposed to do for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that I think it's Leslie Headland.
Yes, Leslie Headland.
If I'm
Thank
correct. She did Russian Dolls.
Yes.
I'll reserve a comment. If I'm a big fan of the podcast How Did This Get Made? If anybody has listened to the Hercules episode, she is one of the guest speakers on it, and it is hilarious. The Leslie Headland is already like she is known for kind of writing an outsider's perspective, if that makes sense. And given, knowing what I know about her background and kind of the movies that she's made, she's really great at kind of talking about someone who is in the minority and having to deal with the powers of authority that are around that. I think that makes her probably an ideal candidate to be able to tell a story like The Acolyte. What I also think is important for people to remember too is victims are taught by their brutalizers, if that makes sense. Like peoples that are people that are decimated then learn from their decimators if they survive, and then use those tools back. That's a terrible thing to realize about history, but it happens so often. You can go back into like ancient Roman times and like how that happens between like groups that then ultimately conquered the Roman Empire. That's where I think this story could really do well, which is to again, I use the Spanish Inquisition as an example, but I think it'd be great to be able to see like what see these people that want to use the dark side and how that starts to infect people. So you got the negative angle of it, like there's a contagion to that.
Yes.
But also why it seems attractive. Like you have to hang something out there that shows its value. And you know what I mean? I think that they can do a show where you have people like your audience root for the underdog against a dominating oppressive force. You have to be careful because you don't want to necessarily paint the Jedi. You may be painting individual Jedi as oppressive and dominating. That probably is the way that they're going to do it. But you need to have that because that gives the character motivation. If the character's just like, oh, all I want is some sweet, sweet power, that's not going to be a show. Like, I don't want to watch that show for 10 episodes. But if it's more like what they tried to do with Anakin, which is, I am very goal driven. My goals are just outside of the dogma, and how that it cuts both ways. I think it's great if you had a character even on the Jedi side that cut both ways. One that's dogmatic and oppressive, but one that is that symbol of this is the better path. And then you have this person that's kind of pushed and pulled between them both. That is this acolyte that is seeking the knowledge that they feel will help them achieve their goals, but they're aware that it's like a poison you drink. Like, you kind of get worse and worse every time you do it. It's like the dark magic in Harry Potter or anything else, or all of that comes with a price.
It totally
like
does.
that would be a cool story to watch.
Yeah, it's the thing. I mean, it's the slow corruption of you, and I think what gets missed so much is in the conversation is it's the dark side corrupts you. There's too much focus on that phrasing, and it's like, it's not that the dark side inherently is a corrupting element. It's a metaphor for, if you allow yourself to be driven only by your passions, your selfishness, your disregard for others, and those things, that will corrupt you as a being. It will corrupt the way that you view the world around you, because at some point you will have a need for things to be different than that. Someone to help you, someone to give you something, to whatever. And it will corrupt you so much that you will not be able to interact with others well, and you will miss things, and it'll cause problems. It will consume you eventually. It'll consume, like, people we know in their life who let themselves be consumed by hate or frustration and all this. It breaks them down eventually. Like, it has a toll on your mental well-being over time. It just in Star Wars, it manifests itself as like the yellow eyes and the shriveled skin and the light pallor and all this type of stuff. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how all the subtleties of how the actors behave and how the Jedi are viewed really start to change from the glory days of the High Republic to what we've known so far. And I hope it opens the door for other content between the Acolyte and, Anakin being born sort of time frame, because hopefully the Acolyte is not the only thing that happens in that time frame, because there's still a pretty substantial gap of time between the Acolyte and the kind of end of the High Republic and the beginning of the current Republic. Like in the canon, there's probably 80 to 100 years, if not more. So I'm hoping that we will see more content that pops up that really reinforces what the Acolyte brings up.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Like, I would like that to be the case because again, I think that Star Wars is actually at a really interesting intersection, which is it. And by the way, like, okay, Star Wars and Lucasfilm are at an intersection. You have a couple of things happening all simultaneously: the writers' strike, the potential SAG, AFRA strike. The Screen Actors Guild might be striking. You have shows that have underperformed for Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilm. And then you also have this pressure from profitability standpoints on streaming services. Like, I think early on, they were like throwing any streaming service possible, right? and now everybody's pulling back. Star Trek Prodigy just got pulled off, even though they've already filmed season 2. They pulled Star Trek Prodigy off of Paramount Plus. I mean, so they're without even showing it, they just pulled it right off, and that's because there's such a demand now for making something like Disney Plus, not just investing, but revenue driven. Like, where are we getting our money? Mm-hmm. And I think that where you get that profitability, but also performance, like I want to watch it, is telling stories that we haven't seen before. I think a thing that hurt Rise of Skywalker is we'd already seen that story. It was called The Force Awakens, and we'd already seen that story. It was the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. What I think you got to expand into is these stories that haven't been given their day, whether it's the High Republic in the novel series, whether it's the Acolyte, whether it is what they're trying to do with the Mandalorian. I mean, I hope it goes somewhere now. Yeah. But of course, Andor. There's a story that was never told. Right. I mean, that's why Andor is so great. Mm-hmm. Go and explore these things that haven't been done yet. That is where the strength of Star Wars is going to be, in my opinion. And that's why I'm excited for the Acolyte.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. Okay, there was a bunch of other stuff on the list, but we have limited time, so we'll cut it down to just a couple of things.
Limited time
only. Well, the last one I wanted to bring up, actually, speaking of telling stories that haven't been told yet, I'm curious your take on the new Star Wars Outlaw game that's set to come out next year. Have you seen the trailers for it?
I've seen the trailers for it. Okay, so full confession, like, I have not been gaming as much. I am excited to see the Outlaw. Is it Outlaws or Outlaw?
Outlaws, I believe. Someone in the chat can probably...
Someone can confirm that. Here's my problem, and I'll be totally frank about it.
Outlaws. It is Outlaws.
I am an old school gamer in that I have a lot of old games. If you played Super Star Wars on the Super Nintendo, you are my friend. I have all those games. I am now like waist deep into Tears of the Kingdom. Same. And it is Tears of the Kingdom can change your life.
Yes.
It is
Tears of the Kingdom now. Yes.
Yeah, but the two of them together. They can also be the thing that I can see, like, why you could buy into the simulation or some like AI driven like society that we all just live through some type of screen. that is transporting me somewhere. I will say this. I'm excited. The latest 2 Star Wars games, both Outlaws and then also Fallen Order. Mm-hmm.
Survivor.
Both. I'm sorry, Survivor. Yeah. The successor to Fallen Order. Survivor is amazing. The voice acting, the characterization, all of that is great. I cannot play a game like Survivor right now because 1, Tears of the Kingdom, and 2, I like have to go to work. Like I have to like be at a job and be like a human in the world. And so that's the only thing that I'm like, I'm loving this era of games because they're so immersive. This is like the games I always wanted. Mm-hmm. So I am excited for Outlaws. I can't play it this calendar year. That's where I'm going with this. I can. That's what I mean by like the old school games. You could pick up Super Star Wars and play it until you died because that game is mercilessly hard. But I can't. You can't just be like, I'm gonna play Fallen Order. Yeah, exactly. Casually. Like I'm not gonna play Tears of the Kingdom for 10 minutes, or I'm just gonna you are gonna play that for 3 hours minimum. And then you're going to be like, what did I do with my time? And there's all these things in those games now. And I know that it's overused to say dopamine hits, but there's all these things where it's like, I accomplished, I found this, like Tears of the Kingdom. I unlocked this memory.
Oh my gosh. And I
and
get
then
to
it's
see
dopamine, and
Ganondorf and
you
all the
know,
Moldugas and attacking, and then yeah,
yes,
yes,
yes, and I'm solving all these puzzles. Am I paying down student loan debt? No, I am not. And that is the problem with these games. So
yes.
I'm excited for it, but I just want to be totally honest. I will not be in a position to talk about it until probably like the next calendar year, because it's great. It looks great. I just can't it's just with all this gaming,
Yeah.
it's like I can't dedicate more of my life to it. Like it's so great. So I'll throw it over to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Um, my you said it really well. I think, in my opinion, a few minutes ago when you said tell stories that haven't been told yet or haven't been given their day. And so I'm excited about the style of game. I like the way the gameplay looks. It reminds me of Survivor, but it has its own different types of mechanics and different types of interactions that make it really interesting. I really love that it has nothing to do, at least so far as we can tell, about Jedi or anything like that. It's about people,
I
this
agree.
particular character trying to just make it in the world and being an outlaw and things that happen. My worry about it is it has the it seems to be a story we have seen over and over again, which is the character's an outlaw, like a Han Solo, whatever else, a Doc Afra type thing. Maybe less of
Mm,
Doc Afra, less too overly selfish like Dr. Afra is, but like it seems to be a story we've seen before. And I am a little worried about that. Like the gameplay will probably be a lot of fun, but I am a little like apprehensive that the contribution to the larger stories that we're trying to see is like I don't mind having another roguish character, the outlaw character, like the Han Solos and whoever already casting the Andors. But I will say, like you mentioned already, and we've talked ad nauseum on this show about, is Andor told a very different story. Yes, there
it's
are
great.
similarities between the Andor character and Han Solo. Sure, there are similarities. That's easy to draw conclusions between a lot of characters. But yes, there are similarities. But the story is a very different story than like even what we saw in the Solo movie. His story
Yeah.
is vastly different than Cassian Andor's story. How they got where they got, their attitudes, why they have their attitudes, all of that is totally different from one another. And I do worry a little, or I'm apprehensive a little, not worry, I'm a little apprehensive
Hmm.
that the Outlaws game is not going to bring us a new set of stories that we have not experienced before. It'll bring us new perspectives from new characters, female lead, which is fantastic. Like all of that, I think is wonderful. I just really hope that they bring about a set of stories for Star Wars that enhance the overall world building, not just look kind of like a copy and paste. That's what I'm
Yeah,
happy because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity here to be really amazing, and I just hope they took that opportunity.
I'm right there with you, and I hope that they do too. I remember seeing all the concept art when they were building this, and I was like, oh gosh, this game looks so great, and it just
Mm-hmm.
reminded me of Fallen Order and Survivor. And then I thought, okay, cool, this isn't going to be a Jedi. This is going to be maybe like Dark Forces or like the old Metal Gear, like
Oh yeah,
someone like a game that's going to be focused more on stealth, if that makes sense. Man, that's a really weird callback, but yeah, stealth. And then there's also, I think, like what I hope that it could be is not a bad version of a Far Cry of a Far Cry successor. Like
mm-hmm.
I hope that it's actually like a really cool adventure, like in the ways of like Tears of the Kingdom, but more stealthy.
Yeah.
More like you're having to like creep around and like kind of solve things, and then you get you're taking something. I hope
Okay. You know
to
what? Actually, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you, but I think it just clicked, and I'm sorry, I just remembered this. One thing I will say that really is going for the game is the fact that this will be the first truly open world Star Wars game. So, like
And I've heard
Breath
that.
of the
I've
Wild
heard
and
that.
Tears of
Yeah.
the Kingdom, which is open world, you can literally go anywhere you want within the boundaries of
Anywhere.
the entire world. I think
Yeah.
that is, I mean, for me at least, I mean, I'm excited. I'm going to get the game when it comes out, of course. I'm going to play the game. No question about it. Story element, Kessel chat, the story side of things is obviously where I'm apprehensive, but gameplay and the contributions, that type of gameplay, even above Survivor, Fallen Order and Survivor, because even Fallen Order and Survivor were not open world. Like you are
That's right.
quite bounded in the areas you can go in each planet and each map. This will
That's
not
right.
be that. So I'm excited to see what that enables you to feel like when you're playing a Star Wars game. Um, it's just the one story piece that I'm just hoping they really execute on.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I hope that they're able to do that. There's two things that I want. I want there to be a thing that you're trying to steal, and then I don't want you to be a good guy at the end. I don't want you to join the rebellion at the end.
I agree.
That is, I want there to be a really cool thing, like a MacGuffin, that you're having to steal, and that maybe it does go for some good use. But you are not in like the rebellion at the end of this story. You're
I'm
like
with you on that
still
one.
your own person, you know?
I 100% agree with you on that one. It's not that the rebellion is played out by any means, but I think
Yeah.
having one more
Though I've
story,
seen that story, you
that
know?
story specifically, we have seen too many times. I don't want to see that again. I would rather
Yeah.
see it where the character is not quite as flagrant with physical harm of people like Dr. Aphra is,
Yes.
but I would
Yeah.
love to see a character that follows something kind of like that, where it's like, I don't try to hurt anybody or care about their well-being. Like, it's not that I don't care, but I'm looking out for me, and this is what I'm going to do. And that the rebellion isn't a part of. Maybe the rebellion exists, but this person's like, dude, I'm not participating in your rebellion. I got my own life to lead, and here's what it looks like for all the other real people in the galaxy who don't ever see the Jedi, who don't really experience the Empire on a day-to-day basis, but deal with the after effects, and they have to live their life in a regular way. They're not trying to help everybody; they're just trying to survive.
That's right.
That's
That's
kind of
right.
interesting.
I want them to just have a code. That's it.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to be nihilistic.
Yes.
I don't need that. I need them to have a code, and that they live by their own code, and then that's fine. Which to me was what they lost in the Mandalorian.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that's the same story from the Mandalorian. Just go back and do some cool for a few dollars more type of storyline.
Hmm.
That to me would work. I know that we're at time, but this has been a cool, like, quick check-in.
Yeah.
We didn't get. Maybe we can end with just some final words from you on the cool new cover
Dude.
for the High Republic.
Oh my gosh. It was awesome. So that's Markion Row. Actually, I don't have it queued up to show you, but that is a character. Actually, maybe I can show you real quick. Hold on. Share. There. That's Markion Row, who's the main
Nice.
antagonist in Phase 1 of the High Republic. Well, the Nihil, these like space pirates. It's oversimplifying to call them space pirates. They're the main antagonist, but really Markion is like the main antagonist from the series. And the way that the High Republic has gone is Phase 1 took place in the heart of the High Republic, which is like 200 or so years before like Anakin's born. I think that's the time period. And then Phase 2 jumped back another 150 years, and so Phase 3 comes back. So it's like, we're going to pause, we'll jump back and tell you kind of how we got to here, and now we'll come back and we'll pick up where Phase 1 left off and continue on with Phase 3. And so this, I believe, is going to be from Phase 3. I'm not positive, but I think this is from Phase 3. They just announced the cover the other day, so the cover's
Nice.
only been out for 2 days, and this character, I cannot tell you how much of a badass this villain is in Star Wars. Has no force powers, acquired a lightsaber in one of the novels that he's been carrying around, but is able to just F with, sorry for my language, but F with the Jedi in so much better ways than any Sith we've ever seen, in my opinion, that
Right on.
I cannot wait for Phase 3, because he's conniving. He doesn't care how he gets his way. He's just going to get his way. He's going to do it. He has reasons we haven't really learned yet. Hopefully we'll learn them in Phase 3. And seriously, he is able to take them down at every pass. Even when they think they're doing good, he's always like a step ahead of them. And it is just, oh my God, I can't wait. So seeing this picture of him in the Thanos-like pose, like just seeing him in that pose, and you still don't see. I mean, we've seen his face in the comics in a couple places, but the Nihil all wear these masks because they're gas masks, because one of their things is they board a ship or land on a planet and they throw this really horrific gas everywhere that makes people choke, in some cases die, as a way to scare everybody when they show up, because gas and smoke and you can't see them, and then they show up with these helmets that have multiple eyes and vocalizers, and it's just, they're very intimidating. This is he is called the Eye of the Nihil, like the planner. So it always has just one central eye in this helmet, and it makes him just super intimidating. No one ever sees his face when he's like raiding a planet or what have you. So he's a powerful figure, and it's so fantastic. but
That is
not
awesome.
but
I'm
not
really
not powerful in like this Thanos way where he's like big and over the top and this big huge personality. He stays in the back. He stays away from all the action. He lets everybody else do his things and lets them die for him. And he goes back by himself onto his own ship that is only crewed by robots, just by droids, and it's only him on his ship and no other part of his organization come onto his ship, and he lets all of them go. He manipulates them all into doing stuff for him so he can stay in the background. It is just very Doctor Doom kind of in that way, which
it's
I really
the
like.
Emperor, man. You know, it is Doctor Doom. It is the people that are like, I'm, that's why they call him the puppet master. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I pull the strings. Those people are always, I'll take a Dr. Claw any day.
Yep.
So yeah, like that's awesome. Well, hey, the next time we come back, I know that we've talked about going over. Jeff actually just returned from a con and did a
Mm-hmm.
tremendous amount of cosplay there. I'm looking forward to being able to get deep dive into your experiences there. And I know that we've talked about doing a potential review of Dial of Destiny, which is the new Indiana
I need
Jones
to
film.
watch it. I haven't seen it yet, so that's gonna be super cool.
I know. It's important for us to be able to do that. So let us know what you'd like to hear
Mm-hmm.
about. We're happy to dive in to the cosplay. We're also happy to hear if there's interest in us talking about a Lucasfilm release, which is the final installment in the Indiana Jones franchise.
Yep.
And I have some thoughts. And then, by the way, like good and bad, I would recommend people see it, not because I'm saying go see it, it's a great movie. Go see it because it's something to see. That is the best way for me to put it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Until next time,
Good deal.
everybody. Have a good weekend. We'll see you soon.
Hey, bye everybody.